that you'd be interested in, and the submissions for the annual jury exhibit. 44 members submitted images with a total of 207 images, which is very good. The majority of people submitted all five, the five that were permitted. And the jurors selected the prescribed number, the 75. So I want to congratulate people who got pictures in and offer condolences to people who didn't. Been there, done that. Everybody who submits over a few years is going to get skunked once in a while. So, but it's going to be a very fine show. Thank you to everybody who's being a part of it one way or another. We have also another juried exhibit, the Friends of Lake Monroe, just for the Bloomington Photography Club. I sent out a MailChimp email this morning about, and the submissions for that begin today. You can submit 5 photos or fewer, and there's no entry fee, and the submissions end at the end of this month, and then the show will be at the Brick Gallery on North College for November. So there's all the explanation is in the email. If you didn't get the email this morning, but it's, you know, it's one of the MailChimp emails. Please let me know. And then there's yet another juried exhibit. This is really quite something going on now. The Art and Soul of Bloomington. Entries for that are due by August 10th. And one other announcement, I just wanted to let you know, looking ahead of the calendar, there's a field trip to the Garden of the Gods in Illinois on September 15 to 17. So you can find information about that also on the web, club website, and also the newsletters that have been going out every Sunday. Does anyone else have an announcement? Kip?
Yes, a month from now, on Labor Day weekend, is the 4th Street Art Festival. We are still asking for people to sign up for a 2-hour shift. Please contact Shine and let her know. She can tell you which ones are still open, but that's a Saturday and a Sunday, 2-hour shifts. And this is a great opportunity for us to be in a very high traffic public art event, for us to expose people to the photography club and all the possibilities that we offer. Thanks. So please talk to Shine. 2 hours is what we're asking.
It's actually quite a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you're not careful, you will have fun.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Just, can Sean send out an email that we can respond to in terms of volunteering for that weekend?
Okay, if she hadn't heard you, I will.
Yeah, I certainly will. Who said that?
Jerry Meyerson.
Oh, okay, absolutely. I'll get that out to you. I have been sending it out in groups, and so you're going to be in the next group.
Okay. All right, Shine is gonna be the leader of this presentation that we're going to have, so I'm going to turn it over to Shine now. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. So welcome to our annual 3-member presentation, a highlight for the club each year. The selection process began months ago, where fellow club members, focus group leaders, and board members submitted names of members they felt were deserving of this honor. Of those nominees, the board of directors made the final selection of the 3 presenting today. Our first presenter is Lisa Walker. She is a wedding and portrait photographer with a special gift of capturing those unforgettable moments in people's lives. We're so glad she recently rejoined the photography club. Take it away, Lisa.
Thank you, Shine. Thank you so much. It's so good to be back and to be with you all tonight. Okay, love what you do and you won't work a day in your life. Again, love what you do and you won't work a day in your life. Except, of course, if it's 90 degrees out and you're shooting an outdoor wedding. Then, yeah, it's work. Ask me how I know that. Ask Kip how he knows that. 23 years ago, I moved here to Bloomington from upstate New York to live with my sister and to care for her son. He was adopted and he came with many challenges. She was a single mom and businesswoman working and traveling nationwide. Bloomington soon grew on me and I decided to make it my permanent home. I picked up my first digital point and shoot 20 years ago and instantly fell in love. If I wasn't taking pictures, I was thinking about taking pictures and I was totally preoccupied with digital camera 24/7. My sister, apparently recognizing some ability or talent, asked me to photograph her while she was building a Habitat for Humanity house. As fate would have it, I ran into the infamous Mr. Kip May, the king of portrait photography. He was also there photographing his brother. After a rather clunky introduction, I literally ran into the man. Kip, with his keen ability to make even the most awkward situations seem normal, did just that. We chatted a bit, and I eventually mustered up the courage to ask him how much it would cost to be trained by him. You can afford me, but how willing would you be to work for an education? My answer to that question resulted in the next several years of assisting him in his portrait sessions. I carried his equipment and held his reflectors while he worked his magic. I absorbed every bit of information, knowledge, wisdom that he had to offer: f-stops, shutter speeds, ISO, posing, lighting, and of course, schmoozing. But I didn't learn that very well. He's still the best. I soon joined the photography club. I loved the meetings and I loved the many field trips. I fell in love with nature photography and I asked many, 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 many questions to a lot of very patient photographers. To those of you that were here 15 years ago, I have to thank you for that. I always felt like I was constantly just asking and asking, but you were all so patient and just kept answering and answering. It was great. I was and am so fortunate to be part of this group of artists. You all are true inspirations. I've been loving seeing your work lately. Thank you so much for the invitation to present this evening. It really is an honor. In photographing people, I soon discovered the truth to the saying, the eyes are the window to the soul. The eyes are the window to the soul. I realized I was not just photographing another pretty face. I was photographing personalities, souls, and emotions. It turns out that photography is so much more than a great career. It taught me life skills. That meant becoming very sensitive to human energy and human behavior and human emotions, being able to read a room and anticipate emotion. I became transparent and vulnerable, setting the stage for my wedding couple, and creating a safe space to photograph their commitment to one another. Because images are my first language, and English is actually my second language, I'm going to transition into slideshows of my work. The first one is engagement sessions. That is where the circle of life begins for my photography. Share screen. So after engagement sessions, another months, within a year, we usually do the weddings.
It must be some kind of magic that brought the sparkle to my eye. Because I never could imagine having even more love in my life. Now all I do is care for you every day and every night. It's hard to explain it, just how it feels. It gives me sweet little pains in my heart, like a sweet little rain that falls for a flower. You're all that matters, baby, you're the star, and that's love, a new kind of love, and that's love, a new kind of love. Whatever you want, you can have it, baby. I put you first every time. Yeah, it's so easy being selfless with you, because your happiness is mine. Now all I do is thank you with every choice I make in my life. It's hard to explain it, just how it feels. It gives me sweet little pains in my heart, like a sweet little rain that falls for a flower. You're all that matters, baby, you're the star, and that's love, a new kind of love, and that's love, a new kind of love, and you so. I only know I never wanna let you go. 'Cause you started something, can't you see? That ever since we met you've had a hold on me. It happens to be true. I only wanna be with you. It doesn't matter where you go or what you do. I wanna spend each moment of the day with you. Look what has happened, just one kiss. I never knew that I could be in love like this. It's crazy, but it's true. I only wanna be with you. You stopped and smiled at me, asked me if I could dance. I fell into your open arms. I didn't stand a chance. Now listen, honey, I just wanna be beside you everywhere. As long as we're together, honey, I don't care. 'Cause you started something, can't you see? That ever since we met you've had a hold on me. No matter what you do, I only wanna be with you. Only wanna be, I only wanna be with you. Only wanna be, I only wanna be with you. I just wanna be beside you everywhere. As long as we're together, honey, I don't care. 'Cause you started something, can't you see? That ever since we met you've had a hold on me. No matter what you do, I only wanna be with you.
So for me, one of the greatest privileges of being with these couples is several years later, watching their relationship grow and having babies and children and following them throughout life. It's been pretty amazing to watch, to be a part of their relationship. So next we have babies.
Sweet, sweet baby, I said maybe you should stay with me. Sweet, sweet baby, I think maybe you shouldn't leave. Sweet, sweet baby, I go crazy.
I would buy that, boy. So before I share the last video with you, I'm going to share something else. I want to share with you a very long story made very short. And my apologies for reading it. I trust you will understand. The reason I tell you this story is to reiterate one very important truth I discovered about photography, and that is its power to sustain and its power to heal. The peace I found in creative flow, the adrenaline rushes, the dopamine hits, and the amazing sense of satisfaction, it's all part of it. It's all part of photography. I had been skipping and dancing along in my photography career, quite happy and loving life for several years. And then 8 years ago, in 2015, my nephew, the boy I came out here to help raise, took his life. He had been struggling with depression and was prescribed a new medication. We later found out that the first side effects was suicidal thoughts. It has since been taken off the market, but for him, it was too late. The PTSD from that horrible night and the following grief buried me that year. I didn't have the energy for social events, resulting in quitting the photography club, as well as stepping back from many friendships. But I would have to say that it was photography that kept me going. My creative flow sustained me through many a tough days, weeks, and months that followed. I had booked over 20 weddings for the year and really had no options of not showing up. If you book a wedding, you're there to photograph it regardless of what life throws at you. And then 2 years ago, actually 2 years ago last night, my very healthy, vibrant, and full of life sister unexpectedly passed away with no known cause, although we believe it was a pulmonary embolism. Being with her for her last few moments on earth and watching the life drain out of her took another huge blow to my soul. And again, photography got me through, especially that first week. I spent hours and hours looking through family, friend, and event images. She was a public speaker, to put together a slideshow, most of which I had created of her over the years. Because she was such a prominent figure in the community, and with so many people attending, we had her memorial service at the IU auditorium. The pictures cycled through on a 20-foot by 20-foot screen up on stage for the first 15 minutes of the service for hundreds of grieving people to view. Photography for me, and I believe for many of us, we all have our own heartbreaking stories, is so much more than shutter speeds and aperture rings. It is 1,000 words. It transports us back to specific places, times, and memories. It is thoughts, it is beliefs, and it is values. It is heart and soul. It is healing. It is a gift. We as photographers not only have the privilege of therapy through art, but we also have the awesome honor of creating beauty and preserving memories of and for those whom we dearly love. This last video is random family, high school seniors, pets, and professional portraits. The last few images are of my nephew and of my sister. She was my sister, she was my best friend, and one of my biggest fans in my photography career. Again, thank you for the invitation to share this evening. It really is good to be back in the club. Where's share screen? There we go. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lisa. I know that you have a lot of questions for Lisa, but I ask that you please save all your questions for all three photographers until the very end to ensure that each presenter has enough time. So I'd like to introduce our next presenter. His name is Teddy Alfrey, a newcomer to the club who comes with vast experience, knowledge, and technological expertise that he gladly shares with other photographers. Take it away, Teddy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me here. This is great thing. This is the only club I've been in since Boy Scouts, so. My name is Teddy Alfrey. My father's name was Teddy too, but everybody called him Ted. And regardless of that fact, I admire many things about my father. I was determined to create my own identity. I was born and raised in Crawfordsville. Let's see if we get. Should be without a slideshow, just start from that slide. That way, yeah, that would work. There we go. Right. Yeah, my family business is roller skating. During the late 1970s to 1992, I had a side business as a photographer. I shot local small town photography tasks, including just over 200 weddings. My mother passed away in 1986, so she could no longer work at the rink. I was a little short-handed. Because of that, I found it much harder to make the time for photography. On top of that, I've gotten pretty burned out on weddings. I eventually got out of the photography business in 1992 in order to concentrate on the skating rink. Most small town rinks all over the country were slowly closing, and my rink was one of them, which happened in 2005. My girlfriend at the time was a professor at IU, so I decided to move to Bloomington and went to work for Otis Elevator Company in the fall of 2005. I'm still at Otis doing programming and web design, but at 71 years old, I'm probably not far from retiring. I had a mild stroke a couple of years ago that only affected my speech. I pretty much got over it, but I still have a touch of aphasia and sometimes stammer around or hesitate as I talk, so you might notice that. As a child, I was a geeky little kid, but my grandfather, who was a Navy photographer prior to World War II, wanted me to become interested in photography. Sometime around 1963, he brought me into his darkroom for the first time. I saw images magically appear from inside of a white sheet of paper. It was one of the most incredible things I'd ever seen and became obsessed with the idea. I dabbled with a cobbled together darkroom in my parents' basement using ice cube trays to slowly lift and pull the film through the developer. Using some small developing trays my grandfather gave me, I was able to make contact prints using the 120 and 620 film required for my Brownie and Saber box cameras. In Boy Scouts, my troop visited the local Crawfordsville newspaper, the Journal Review, where the staff photographer showed us his professional darkroom. The photographer's name was Grady Franklin, and when I told him that I was learning to develop film and prints, he asked a buddy of mine and myself if he could teach us a few things. And we visited his darkroom several times over a few months. Most importantly, he taught us to load 35mm film onto stainless steel reels. Now I could develop my film in drums with no more ice cube trays. When I got married in 1975 to my first wife, we moved into our own house where I decided to build a proper darkroom. We had a second upstairs kitchen that fit the bill perfectly. I was already somewhat proficient with black and white, so I was ready to go color, which was easier than I thought. By the time I was starting to get serious about taking and developing photos of my own, I volunteered to shoot a wedding. The next thing I knew, I was shooting at least one wedding a week and could no longer work on my own stuff. That kind of very frequent camera work and developing both the negatives and prints was a good background, and I learned a lot about photography that I wouldn't have otherwise. However, if I'd have been able to simply shoot my own stuff during the 17 years I did other people's photos, I might have had some interesting output. Instead, I ended up too stressed out, so I hung up my camera and sold most of my darkroom equipment. Fast forward to 2005 and closing the skating rink, I flirted with the idea of shooting weddings again, but decided to only work on my own photos. Around 2010, I became much more interested in photography and dropped my other hobbies of bicycling and guitar so that I would at least zero in on the goal of mastering photography before my life was over. I've always been interested in art history and fine art paintings. I've visited art museums all over the world, and I'd like to think that what I learn advises what I do in photography. I can't paint, but I want to create images, and I find it deeply satisfying when I notice my progress in making better photos. Of course, my favorite photographer is Ansel Adams. Wherever I got the chance, I tried to replicate the zone system processes. Since I only had 35mm film, I sometimes would roll my own, and I created rolls with enough room for 10 shots in a roll. This would make it simple to process each image separately. If you've ever read about how Adams talks about developing single image sheet film, you should be able to figure out why I did this. But I'm also a fan of pictorialist photographer William Mortensen, who Adams called the Antichrist. As much as I admire Ansel Adams, I think his harsh words about Mortensen were over the top and suspect that there's a more interesting story behind his hatred. I also appreciate the work of Minor White. White is buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where it turns out it's the same cemetery where I will end up. I like to think that I see some of Minor White's framing in my own work. At least it speaks to me. I often think about when he said, "I want to create something that would not have existed without me." In 2006, during an annual New Year's Eve party in New York, I became friends with a professional French photographer named Philippe Vermees. Once he realized I was into photography, he took me under his wing and treated me as an equal, reviewing my work and showing me the latest stuff he was working on, including boxes of prints he always carried around. It was great for someone as accomplished as Philippe to take me seriously and actually be interested in my work. I'm a fan of all the usual suspect great photographers, but I also get inspiration from authors like Roland Barthes and Susan Sontag. Barthes' concepts of studium and punctum are things I frequently think about while taking photos, among many other things. The word technician has a specific meaning that doesn't exactly apply to me, but I feel like I am a photo technician. I tend to be a gadget freak and enjoy involved processes, which is a big plus when you want to start your own darkroom. I love gimmicky things like stereoscopy, stitch panoramas, intentional camera movements, focus stacking, tripod craft, handheld flash, and playing with the newest cameras I can get my hands on. I'm not particularly interested in vintage cameras or film, but I'd like to talk about it with people, or going back to the darkroom. I've been there and done that. It feels like it's time to move on with bold enthusiasm into the 20th century. So now I'll go through some of my photos. This is the photo that's given me the most buzz lately. I used to shoot a lot of bee photos, but the bees have been scarce lately. This bee was departing a Japanese anemone. It might just be me, but departing bees in a photo almost always look like they're about to land. But you have to be pretty darn lucky to catch a bee landing. There's a path of anemones in our garden right now that are about to bloom. And I anticipate there being more bees available for photos anytime now, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Bees love Japanese anemone. They also love the upcoming fall bloom of asters. Verbena bonarensis are a favorite pollinator hangout. One of the things I love about verbena is you don't have to bend over to shoot from the bee's level. We have 3 big pots of these plants on our patio. In previous years, there would be a dozen or more bees swarming around these photogenic purple flowers, along with butterflies, hummingbird moths, and a few different types of bees. Right now, I rarely see more than 3 honeybees at a time and almost never see bumblebees. I always use a handheld flash in my left hand pointed at the bees, sometimes from the left, like in this shot, sometimes from above, like here, but not often, but sometimes from below. I've been tempted to purchase and use a ring light, but haven't. I feel like using a flash at an angle perpendicular to the lens axis adds more depth. If you do handheld flash in this matter, it takes a little practice because it's very easy to point the flash in the wrong direction. While looking through the viewfinder, it's like your hand, it's hard to say where your hand's going. But after a couple hundred shots, you start to get the feel of it, but it's worth the trouble. Now, I'm not much of a flower person, but my wife is a hardcore gardener, and I was happy to oblige taking photos of her flowers, especially her English roses. The colossal nerd that I am, This image is a focus stack of around 30 images of 5 separate sections that were stitched into a panorama. I do a lot of focus stacked roses, but I was never able to get into the spirit of roses before focus stacking. I could never get the satisfying rose photo until I started doing focus stacking. Then it just sort of opened up for me. This one's not stacked. Sometimes you don't need to have everything in perfect focus, but you do need to have the right combination of in and out of focus elements. There are a lot of flowers in our garden besides roses. Here's a poet's narcissus. I almost always use a flash on a light stand with a snoot for stationary flowers. In this case, the snoot was pointed down and into the core of the flower. This accentuated the yellow glow on the white petals. Here's a stacked dahlia with the snoot pointed from the left. Dahlias are beautiful, but only 1 in 10 are as symmetrical as this one. We've got a ton of dahlias in our backyard right now, but like I said, about only 1 in 10 is really worth shooting. A Rebecca, and this one is from Matt Hicks's garden from a couple of weeks ago. My favorite macro lens is the 105 millimeter, and it's hard to beat that creamy, out of focus background of bouquet. This is a lowly pansy, and you're not going to get details like this without stacking. Here's a particularly elegant iris stacked with a snooted flash on a light stand from behind the flower. Flowers of complementary colors like this are a big plus. There are plenty of macro opportunities just out your back door. I find rain and dewdrops to be particularly irresistible subjects. In the past, I've used glycerin to make my own droplets, but natural ones to discover are usually more interesting. There's no way I could have lined up 12 drops of glycerin on this rose leaf. I can't tell you how many times I accidentally bumped my subjects, calling all the droplets that fall off. Here's a plant hopper that's mesmerized by a couple of dewdrops on a blade of grass. This insect is about 3/16 of an inch long, and combining its tiny size with a simple thin blade of grass helps make the droplets look gigantic. The concave shape of this rose leaf allowed the formation of a pretty good sized droplet. The serendipitous and gorgeous compositions of nature happen millions of times a day in our own neighborhood if we just look for them. One of the best ways to do that is through the viewfinder of a camera. A dandelion is a great way to practice macro focus stacking. It's almost impossible not to have unwanted artifacts of dandelions, but they can be minimized or even used to enhance the photo with practice. If you get dandelions halfway right with focus stacking, other subjects can be a piece of cake. This is another dandelion resting on a sheet of watercolor paper backlit by a flash. This one is not focus stacked. Here's a dandelion backlit by a snoot shooting directly through and into the camera. This is a focus stack. Here's another dandelion focus stack. Well, I shot enough images to bring the entire ball of fur into focus. I chose instead to only use the images for the core of the dandelion. So you can kind of pick and choose your own depth of field by using focus stacking. Here's a common redbud leaf sandwiched between a piece of glass and white plexiglass, backlit by a flash. I still need 6 image focus stack because it's critical for a shot like this to be 100% sharp across the entire leaf. And here is 100% detail of that leaf where you can almost view this on a cellular level. Here's an inch one pretending to be a stick so that I wouldn't eat it. The worm stood still so long that I was able to create a 40 image focus stack. That was riveted there. Here are some mites on a harvestman. And this is not stacked. Daddy longlegs don't like to stay still when a camera's in their face. Here's an orchard orb weaver, not focus stacked. I had a couple of Facebook friends unfriend me because of this photo. A lot of people don't like spiders. Now this one is actually upside down if you didn't already figure that out. Here is a focus stack kissed me over the garden gate, otherwise known as a weed. Leaving the world of macros and combining Doppels into a gigantic ballet of motion is present in nearly every stream. This is at Leonard Springs Nature Preserve. This is downstream from Boulder Falls in Colorado. These photos are stitched panoramas. Even though the water is moving fast, errors in the stitching process are few and easy to correct in post. It's almost uncanny that you can get away with that. Here's a stream of Rocky Mountain National Park. I usually don't use this long of a shutter speed, preferring to bring more character into the water, but I was trying to capture the power of this leaping jet of water. This is not a stitched panorama, and it's not a focus stack or anything. I shoot quite a few landscapes. I often get them in portrait-oriented segments and stitch them together in post. This will allow you to double, triple, quadruple your megapixels using this technique. Unfortunately, it's hard to appreciate the details of my very large photos, like this bottom shot of the flat irons at Boulder. Snow and frost on the pine trees are clearly visible upon close examination. It might not be detected in a smaller version. This is from Edinburgh, Scotland during the spring yellow gorse bloom as I was shooting toward Arthur's Seat. I didn't even notice how many people were hiking on the hills until they opened the file and closed it. See all those little people look like porcupines on the side of the hill. I mean, there's even all over that. There's just people crawling around the trails and everything. Here are rolling clouds over Iceland with sunbeams raking across the mountains where intimate details of numerous waterfalls, houses, and barns can be found. I was stuck in a cabin. We had a cruise around Iceland, and the first night I got COVID, was quarantined for the whole time, but we had a great balcony, which I got this shot from, not many others. Two panoramas from Lady Island. The top image looks pretty good, but if you take a look at it closely, it's not out. It's kind of it's just too soft. And this is one of those that it just got away. But I thought I'd show it up there. So no matter how careful you are, you're going to get something like that happen. Here's the JW Marriott building in Indy. That's a stitch panorama, and that's a thunderhead leaving the St. Louis area. Now this, when the thunderhead photo, I was lucky to catch a nearly full moon that went away like 2 minutes after I took that picture. It was all covered up with a cloud. But once I opened this in post, I discovered a jet ascending from Lambert International Airport. I don't know if you can make that out, a little black speck. Closer to home, here's a stitched panorama of Showalter Fountain, including some pretty good details. You can kind of get an idea how much information there is in that whole panorama. I dabble with architecture photography. I like this shot of the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. And skies are super important, and I was very lucky that it had a nice sky, the sunbeams rolling across the arch. Here are the front doors of St. Paul's Cathedral in London. This is a stitched panorama, but I had to clone out the corner of a tarp where people were they could search people's backpacks as they were going into the cathedral. This is right across the river from St. Paul's. This is the skyscrapers in London looking up at it. I was just walking along and happened to glance up and I thought, holy mackerel. So I had to take this. And again, the skies can make or break a shot like this. Here's a stitch panorama of Lambeth Bridge shot from Westminster Bridge in London with a detail at the bottom. Right behind me was the London Eye on the other side of the bridge. This is the Kunstmuseum in Liechtenstein. I had no idea this building existed until I left my bus tour to walk around that very small capital city of Vaduz. A block away from the bus, I found myself standing in front of this spectacular glossy building. And as luck would have it, an interesting sky. I had an hour before the tour bus had to leave, which isn't too bad. Tour bus stops sometimes aren't much longer than 20 minutes, which isn't much time to analyze your scenes and then shoot. A lot of these tours are great. I really love these tours, but sometimes you just don't have enough time to take photos. Here's the Indianapolis Public Library front and back. Most people don't know this, but Indianapolis has more historic memorials and monuments than any US city outside of Washington, DC. And this, the top one is a stitch panorama where I was too close. My back was up against like a trash can and some other things, but I was just kind of too close, but I still ended up with a decent shot, even though there's a lot of barrel distortion. I think the barrel distortion kind of adds to the structure of this building. This is the Eskenazi Museum of Art right here in Bloomington, and it's a gorgeous IMP building. The Louvre Museum Pyramid was designed by the same architect, IMP. Here's a different angle on the Eskenazi Museum of Art. I shot straight up the front windows and into the sky, leaving out various cues that might lead a viewer into thinking this is a platform in the sky. This is the stitch panorama of the limestone walls at the art museum. I zeroed in on just the stones, leaving out any orientation information. The top photo is upside down in what I actually shared. In my opinion, this provides a more interesting and elevated viewpoint. The bottom is right side up, and to me, this is more like an ordinary shot from the ground. This is the Golden Gate Bridge, which is one of my favorite places on the planet. Which, when we were talking to Mackinac Bridge, it's a shame we can't walk out under these pylons that showed up at. Here's another angle of the Golden Gate Bridge. If you were there, you would hear the fog, that deep fog coming across the landscape. I enjoy playing around with intentional camera movement, ICM, but I don't do it as often as I ought to. The shadow across my face was caused by the camera and its strap. If the camera were pointed in the opposite direction, I would be ready to take a photo of the sun. These are from a moving train crossing Switzerland. I shot a few hundred shots while sitting in our sleeper car. I still need to mine these for more shareable material, but all I did was sitting there just holding the camera as still as I could and just ripping them off. You might recognize this trail in Yellowwood State Forest. Someone commented on this photo in a Flickr group. They said, this must have been when the edibles kicked in. Shortly after I took that last photo, a group of eastern tiger swallowtails crossed the path, which is total luck. It just, there it was. I mean, I had my camera already set up in like a half a second. There they were. Surprising results are common using intentional camera. If you haven't already, try rotating your camera with a quarter-second shot. And you'll probably need to shoot a lot of them, because if you shoot up 100 shots, you're probably only going to get 2. It's going to be worth doing, but it's definitely worth the trouble. Even if you don't get any good shots, it's a blast. Similar intentional camera movement, time exposure rate. This was taken at the Paddington Underground Station in London. There were a lot of people walking back and forth across that too, and I'm not sure exactly how that ghost-like figure ended up. I think it was just that moment, people were continuously moving, and that's what blocked the light of the passing by train.
Did you have that set up in a truck?
Yes. Here's the midway at this Indiana State Fair, which is going on right now. Here's the headlamp of the jogger running up a fire trail into the Flatirons. That's Boulder, Colorado in the background.
Oh, that sounds.
This is along the Wall of Love alongside the Thames, just off of Westminster Bridge, not too far from where I took that picture of Lambeth Bridge. Well, this isn't exactly a time exposure. It sure looks like it. Shooting from a stationary tripod, as I did, allows for perfect registration. So I rapid fired several half-second exposures and blended various elements from them in many layers of post. It might have been more fun if people were running in the center of the photo, but then my tripod was smack dab in the middle of the trail. I like to shoot what I call urban still lifes. This is from an alley in my hometown of Crawfordsville. Here's a Bloomington alley scene. Here's the side of a building in Innsbruck, Austria. And here's another shot from Innsbruck after the rain with the rainbow in the background. This is at Como, Italy, which is kind of a face, robotic looking face. This is a glorious shop window display in Oxford, England. It's like so much stuff in there. you take a close, and you can, this is a pretty large photo too, so if you take a close look at it, you can see a lot of interesting details. This is a convenience store in downtown Vienna, Austria. Now, I like to take pictures of statues and sculptures, and now we start to get into the concept of other people's art, where statues are, you can, it's more forgivable than like taking pictures of paintings, but I think that would be a great topic for discussion for the club, like what is other people's art? I mean, I think if it's applied art, it's one thing, but if it's fine art, it's another. If sculptures are right in between, and then you have architecture, like nobody cares. And this is from a memorial from Milan's Monumental Cemetery. This is just a little plug for stereoscopic photographs. This is a memorial to a child at Monumental Cemetery. I got a lot of stereo photos on my Flickr site. If anybody's interested, or if anybody's interested in this kind of photography, please let me know. This is the Commando Memorial in Lochaber, Scotland, which I thought is particularly interesting because for whatever reason they had canvas at the base. I thought that made it more interesting or not. And again, take a look at that sky. If that would have been just a plain blue sky or white overcast, it would have been, I think it would be worth using. Here's the backside of the Pro-Patriot statue at the Indiana War Memorial in Indy. I guess I need to clone up that station wagon in the bottom right corner. But again, look at that sky. Cymbal player atop the Depew Memorial Fountain in Indy. If you know what that is, it's got statues of these children running around like a maypole thing at the base of it. That's the sun was right behind the statue's head. That was a pure blue sky. I thought the gradient with the sun worked out pretty well. And it's tricky to get that if you want to try to share these photos, because that's where you end up with a lot of artifacts because of the JPEG compression. You'll get different jaggies and things like that. Here are a few odds. Here's some odds and ends shot, not probably with any particular kind of theme. But this is Redshank at Flatey Island. There were a lot of birds swarming around in this shot, and I had to clone some of them out because they're either too confusing or they just look like dust on the sensor. If you're a birder, you really need to think about going to Iceland sometime. Here's a lily with my snoot pointed down and directly into the heart of the flower. And this is a focus stack, but I deliberately let that front petal out of focus sort of add depth to it. This is an English rose named Queen of Sweden. My snoot was just barely raking across the front of the petals coming from the left. This is a bicycle from a graffiti in Vienna, Austria. I was holding, there's an old saying where you say frame your shot and wait, which I was doing. I had framed on this graffiti and waiting for bicyclers to zip by with a kind of a long shutter speed. This is again in Vienna, St. Stephen's Cathedral. I don't know why there are no cars here. This is all like a big pedestrian mall. So I'm not sure exactly what they were waiting on. This is the narcissus peeking through the leaves. This is a focus stack. Here's a bumblebee flying over a fall aster. Of course, that's not a focus stack, but if you're careful with your shutter speed, you can get that blurred motion of the wings along with the razor sharp, like the fur on the bee and the eyes. Another bee will be on an aster. I don't know if you can see. This is where, again, if you want to be able to look closely at the photo, because I think this is a pretty good picture of the bee. But if you take a closer look, go into the next one. That is covered with mites.
Oh, wow, yes.
I didn't notice that until I saw it close.
Oh, wow.
This is a leaf skeleton backlit through white plexiglass. And I experiment a lot with this stuff, and I haven't really shared any yet, but I try to take.
You need to be wrapping up.
I try to do focus stack, but I do just panorama so I can get as much detail as I can and stuff like this to bring the texture in. And here is the next one. You can see it's zoomed in at 100%. You can see some of the details, the skeleton of the leaf.
Teddy, you need to be wrapping up. You've got 1 minute.
Okay. There's more time exposure. I think it's almost here at the end. There's probably the next one. This is, I had the camera sitting on the floor of an elevator, notice elevator company at Florence factory. Here is a brood X cicada. Here's a hummingbird moth and a verbena. Here's a portrait of a praying mantis. And here is a robber fly on a dead lily stick. There's a cucumber beetle waving bye to everybody. This is my last shot. This is a low, I'm using the low wide angle macro, holding it in front of the bee pointed at my face. Wow. So thanks everybody for looking at my.
Thank you. Great presentation. Our final presenter for the evening is Tom Zoss. He has had a diverse and fascinating professional career. He is an active member of Friends of the Library and gives away free camera equipment. His photography is eclectic, using both film and digital mediums. Take it away, Tom.
Thanks, Shine. Thanks to everybody. I've been thinking about exactly why I'm on the program tonight. I'm the oldest. My name starts with a Z, so I'm used to being last. I'm kind of the token left-handed, bald amateur photographer. I'm humbled by the quality of what you've seen tonight. And I've got a little selection here. I pre-recorded it so I could stay within the time. And I'm going to go ahead and play that by sharing my screen. And thanks again.
We didn't,
No sound.
we didn't hear the sound, Tom. Tom, we don't hear the sound.
It looks so sincere.
I know, he is sincere. Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
we don't hear the sound of the video.
Okay. I'll start it again.
Start again.
Hi, my name is Tom Zoss, and I'd like
But now we hear the sound, but we don't see.
to be part of the program tonight.
Good job, good job.
Let's give you a chance to go through hundreds.
He's getting it together.
When you hit share screen, it'll give you an option of sharing audio
Yeah,
also.
I've got that all clicked. We'll try it again. If not, I'll switch to the PowerPoint. Hi, my name is Tom Zoss now, and I'd like to thank the board and the
We don't
members
see-
for letting me be part of the program tonight.
we don't see it, Tom.
It's given me a chance to go through hundreds of old pictures.
I'm
And
on the monitor.
are you not getting the sound at all?
We're getting the sound, but we're not getting the video. You're on the wrong monitor.
Huh.
With the video and the monitor that you're sharing.
I practice this so much. I'm sorry.
It's all right, take your time. Still have about an hour.
Well, mine takes 16 minutes. Find some to share. How about and I appreciate the chance, and I hope you enjoy this short
That's
little
not.
presentation of my
I-
picture.
No video.
We don't see it.
I'm happy to say that I grew up in, for heaven's sake.
Tom, we don't see it. You want me to play it from here?
If you can, yeah, it would be fine. That's why we
Yeah,
have
okay.
a backup.
Okay, let's stop sharing and I'll play it from here, okay?
Okay.
All
I
right.
apologize, everybody.
No, you okay, you okay, you okay. Let me just find it. I'm prepared for that. All right, let me see if I can get it in here. Well, if I can find it, Tom, hang on. It would be there somewhere.
BPC.
Well,
Said 2023 submit BBC show.
maybe this is it, I don't know. No, I didn't see it. I did not see it, but. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and then we'll do it, okay? Apologize, guys, for a little bit of technical difficulty, but we are gonna get it. Does everybody see this?
No sound.
You sound okay? Let me.
Turn the sound up.
Well, I think we need to change the sound. Hang on.
Let me just switch to the PowerPoint. I can do it.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay. Okay, it's all yours.
Can you see the slide now?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, good. I'll start again by thanking the board and everybody for letting me come. And it still won't go over time, I assure you. I come from a family of people who took pictures. My dad took pictures, and I grew up in an environment where we were encouraged to. Here's a picture my dad took. I'm the surly kid on the left there. I was never a professional, although I often used photography in my work, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that tonight. My first camera was a Brownie Hawkeye, and these are a couple of pictures I took of my sisters while I was playing around with how to light for a portrait. I think I scarred my sisters for life. They hate to have their pictures taken now, and I think it's because of this. I've had many cameras in my life, horse trading, borrowing, used old cameras, things like that. And I've taken a lot of pictures, but I've had a lot of jobs too. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my weird career in the next 15 minutes or so. After snapshotting a lot, I ended up in high school as the school photographer. I shot the yearbook pictures and the newspaper pictures. John Adams High School in South Bend, we had a weekly newspaper in the high school. And for 4 years, I shot lots of shots. The high school had a dark room, but as it turned out, I was the only one who used it. So I had the run of the dark room and some better equipment than I could afford at home. My dark room at home was not the best. It was right next to the laundry room. And my pictures were often study and dust from the dryer. So tonight, I've done a lot of photography all through my career, but I'm going to show you just a couple from the arts area, and then some positions, jobs, and consulting work, and then a little bit of travel at the end. I worked in the arts in an interesting job for several years. I was the producer and the general manager of a professional opera company. So I shot both on stage and backstage pictures of a lot of our productions, plus all the publicity shots and headshots and things like that. Photography was very useful. Of course, this was back in the film days. Hardest part was matching color temperature so that you had the right kind of film for the stage lights. But it was really a fun job, and we did a lot of good work touring. But there was also good black and white opportunities. This is a backstage shot, one of the striking the set in one of the productions. This is actually backstage at the IU South Bend Auditorium, where the stage is exactly the size of the Musical Arts Center here. Many of the stages in Indiana in the IU system were built to tour opera after they had been produced here in Bloomington. I've also done a lot of work backstage and in front and other different things for concerts and all. Here are just three. I worked in the music industry then for Selmer and CG Kahn, both big band instrument companies. I was head of advertising at Kahn. And then I went on in the music business to work at Electro Voice, concert sound, microphones, big speakers and things like that. So I did a lot of concerts and a lot of things, and I can't go to a concert without taking a picture, although I don't take pictures during performances. Salzburg Marionettes visited Bloomington at one point on tour, and I got permission to go backstage and photograph it for Professional Puppeteer magazine, and that was really interesting. Now, later, Bernadette and I bought a nearly out of business weekly newspaper in Culver, Indiana. We were the only two employees, and we put out a paper every week, and we converted the paper from letterpress to offset. So we had really good photo reproduction, and we took pictures every day, had to develop every week because had to get a paper out. Then I was in consulting and had out of South Bend, my biggest client was probably AM General, although he did a lot of work for Notre Dame too. I helped introduce the civilian Hummer, do a lot of publicity and promotion. We never had to advertise the Hummer. There was so much free publicity and PR that all we had to do was send out press releases and take pictures. That was really interesting. I did a lot of video work there too. Another client was St. Raymond Paper in Saint Raymond, Quebec. They happened to have their 100th anniversary, so we ran a big 100th anniversary celebration with banquets and celebrations, and of course everything had to be in bilingual because it was French Quebec. Then I handled public relations for the Avanti Motor Corporation, South Bend. Avanti was a car designed by Raymond Loewy. Fiberglass made by Studebaker right at the end of when they stopped production in South Bend in 1963. But some people in South Bend bought the rights and the tooling, rented an empty Studebaker factory, and produced Avantis for several decades afterwards. You still see them occasionally. Now, travel was another part of our life. We don't come from money, but we've had the pleasure of some interesting travel in our lives. I like timer shots, so I take pictures of myself. And this is a picture of me on the left in Pisa. And then the one on the right is a Kodachrome I took from the top of the Leaning Tower. I don't think you can climb the tower right now, but we could then. You go round and around and climb up corkscrew. You're dizzy when you get to the top, so you have to wait. But when you feel better, you can take some interesting pictures from up there. When we were in England, these are my twin sisters, the same ones you saw at the beginning, standing on one of the fallen stones at Stonehenge. Stonehenge is another place you can't get close to, I believe. It's ringed with a fence now. You can go to the place, but you can't get close like this. Right time, right place. I've had the pleasure of visiting Egypt twice. Here's a collection of pyramid shots I took. It's easy to miss how big they are. If you look in the upper left-hand picture, see the picture of the people standing next to it? That's what they call a step pyramid. And to the right of that is the bent pyramid. Apparently when it was being constructed, the angle of the sides was too steep and they didn't have enough stones, so they changed the angle halfway through, and they call that the bent pyramid. Down below is the plaza at Giza with the Great Pyramid and a couple of others, and the Sphinx. This was actually my first panoramic that I ever took. I didn't know about taking panoramic, and so I I just shot a whole bunch of shots from left to right and stitched them later. And I've since learned to do much better. I was told I was shooting film on the first trip, and I went to a Kodak lab to develop my film. And the man said that almost all the film labs in Egypt didn't have running water, which made me realize my strategy of developing film in the country so it wouldn't have to go through X-ray on the way back was bad. And it was right then that I decided if you travel, you have to have a digital camera, not use film anymore. I must say that it's hard to take a bad picture in Egypt. It's so photogenic. The obelisk on the right here was interesting. This is in a quarry. They were finishing the obelisk and it cracked. And they realized that it would never be able to be transported down the Nile or up the Nile, I guess, and erected. And they just abandoned it. And it's been sitting there now for hundreds of years in the quarry. In Alexandria, they've built a new Alexandria library that's on the left. It's spectacular, but it's nothing like the Alexandria Library of Antiquity, of course. But there are a lot of Roman ruins in Egypt, and there's an amphitheater in Alexandria. We went to China, had a wonderful trip to China. Hundreds of pictures. I'm not going to bore you with any of them, but they're all very typical. A tourist spot for me. Here's a beautiful shoreline in Jaffa. Actually, this is from a panoramic, but the rest of it's just water. It's kind of boring. It's hard to take a good panoramic sometimes because they include too much stuff that isn't interesting. This is at the Hermitage in Russia, in St. Petersburg. Just an amazing place to visit. Amazing works of arts that are all poorly displayed and not temperature controlled conditions. It's a kind of a horrible thing for the art. We also traveled a good bit in the USA with our family. And it's work to get interesting pictures that aren't just like everybody else's. Here's Mount Rushmore on the left, and on the right is Frank Lloyd Wright's designed falling water out over a river and a waterfall. This is in Pennsylvania. In French Lick, I had a tour of the dome by the architect who restored it for the Cook family. So this is up on top of the dome. And in the center of the dome on the inside is a little room where some of the Italian artisans who helped build the dome and decorate the original hotel did little paintings, religious paintings. And here's one of them. And that's the architect there on the right. Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. It's out on the edge of town, out by the airport, but it's part of the Smithsonian. Things that blow me away there, they have one of the 18 remaining Concorde airplanes inside the building. It flew at 1,800 miles per hour, or knots, I guess. And they have one of the space shuttles with all of its reentry scars from the heat. Here's some favorites of mine, some from right here. This is in the Showers building on Morton Street. They have a 2-floor safe there that the Showers company kept all its blueprints and things. And look what's on the door here. This is a 6-foot-high door. I thought that was interesting. This was an interesting shot after we got off of a cruise ship. Bigger than the town we stopped at, I think. This was the first IU Carillon. This is the one that they removed the bells and tore down, had the bells reconditioned and added some bells to increase its range and replaced in the new Carillon that's in the center of campus there just past the library on 10th Street. When I was at school at IU, where the Carillon now was the football stadium. And this was at a gala performance by the Bloomington Chamber Singers. They had bell choir to perform, and after their rehearsal, I thought this was kind of interesting. This is a cell phone shot. When we were in Culver, there were two artists, Warner and Gene Williams. He's a sculptor, she was a painter, and he taught art at the Culver Academy. And behind their little house, they built a geodesic dome studio. And they were often out in their studio living with their art. This is just a candid. This was my barber, Heisel. He's passed away now. And I don't need a barber anymore either. So this was kind of an environmental shot that gives you just a feel for the place. He had all kinds of memorabilia and things. Now, I'll finish with a few panoramic shots because I love panoramic shots. This doesn't look like a pano, but it is. This banyan tree was so huge, I couldn't get it all in one shot. So it's a stitched shot horizontally. So I could shoot this whole tree. It's amazing. This was the IU steam calliope that's been restored, and they truck it around to parades and things in Indiana. And to get the whole special truck and tractor and all, it needed a panoramic shot. This was shot on film. Here's the public library in the Kirkwood office. Down below is Frank Lloyd Wright's home. Actually, maybe the third one because it kept burning down. Upper left there in the home is their bedroom, and his wife liked birds. So he built this cantilevered bridge so she could go out in the morning and listen to birds singing. These are a couple of concert shots. Chamber singers in a church in Bloomington up above, and that's Carnegie Hall down below. Our daughter Emily sang with the Indianapolis, the choir, and they toured to Carnegie Hall. Now she sings in Washington, D.C. in Kennedy Center. I'm a former tuba player, I have to admit that. And I had to visit the Tuba Museum in Durham, North Carolina. And I couldn't avoid taking this picture. Here's Sylvia McNair doing a house concert. I shot this with an iPhone live. It's hard to take a panorama live with people because they move, but it came together okay. And here down below, we were on an interstate, pulled over in a rest stop. And from the car's side of the rest stop, I looked across the greenery here, and that lineup of trucks demanded a panoramic shot. Balcony shot from Honolulu, and if you drive north or south on Rogers Street, just past the roundabout by the new library branch, you're in Clear Creek, Indiana. There's a post office there. And across the street is this abandoned trestle bridge. It's hard to see when there's greenery on the trees, but that needed a stitched, this digital, I think. And this is a little bit of whimsy, a shot I took after a garage sale. I bought this Le Creuset for $15. And that's about all I want to subject you to. And I appreciate your patience while we got the technology working. I do not understand what the problem was, but I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Tom. And thank you to all three presenters. This has been amazing. You guys have done an incredible job. We have some time now. I'd like to open the floor up to any questions, any comments you might have, and address it to any or all of the presenters.
Tom, can I comment? I just want to comment on your barber shop picture. I love black and white anyway, and the barber shop, I found that absolutely fascinating. Anyway, I know you had a lot of fascinating pictures, but they call attention. And what was that, film picture?
I didn't hear that clearly. I'm sorry.
Was that on film or?
No, I think that was a cell phone picture too.
Just a really fantastic, all three of them. So, go ahead, Jack.
I have a question for anybody that wants to answer it. What was the biggest difference, challenge, or whatever when you switched from shooting film to digital?
Just miss those plastic cans that you can put pills and screws in. Other than that.
Couldn't hear you, Teddy. What was that? I couldn't hear you.
Well, I'll comment. You know, when you're shooting film and you've got 10 or 24 or 36 shots in your camera, you're stingy. You pose your shots, you're more careful, you study, you've got to focus, you've got to set your exposure sometimes. And to change mentally to the point where you can just shoot 100 shots on digital and you still have room on your card, that's a whole different approach to photography for me. And I'm still shooting some film and digital both. And you kind of have to switch modes when you switch back to film to you're composing more than I do when I'm shooting digital. So that was one change, I think, Jack. You approach it differently.
Thank you, Tom.
I wanted to comment on what Lisa Walker had said about how therapeutic photography is. And until she said that, I didn't fully realize the effect of how that had affected me. And when we were doing a dry run, you know, with Lisa and everything, I was telling her that, you know, I think photography is something that really helped me get through the isolation of the pandemic. I just, you know, just to take my camera out into the yard when the world just seemed to be standing still, and just focusing on flowers or you know, or whatever, and coming in and post-processing that. I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's hard to describe. I think Lisa, you know, discussed that really well, but I don't know how many people consider that a form of therapy as well, but it definitely is for me.
Anybody else?
I have a question for Teddy.
Go ahead. Right.
Will you teach me? How much will it cost to learn how to focus stack? Is that what you call it?
Yes.
And don't tell me I have to carry your equipment so that I can learn.
She's using the same line. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can help you out whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I would love to learn that. Do a lot of you know how to do that?
No.
Yeah, kind of.
Not as good as Teddy.
Not as good as them, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good topic for a teach-in.
That's what I was thinking.
Lisa? Stacking with where he puts his light. He had thought through where he puts the light as he focus stacks, that I thought would be very useful to understand too.
Lisa, a lot of the macro people do the focus stacking.
like-
Oh,
So that's where I've seen in our macro group, almost all of them do it, I think, or a good portion anyhow. So come to one of the macro meetings.
I will do that. I will do that. I'm not sure I want to put that much work into a picture, but at the same time.
And I do think, even though some of us in macro do it, it would be nice to have maybe a session where Teddy shows us how to do the lighting and how to take the stacking and what you do with the photos. So yeah, we do it in macro, but I'd like to be a little bit better.
Volunteers.
Yeah, just in case if you don't know, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join this club, because I wanted to be able to share it to people. So I'm ready to go whenever you are.
You know,
We'll fix it.
I just, watching these presentations tonight was just another reminder of the great skill and talent and diversity we have in this club. And it's almost like you could go around to take 3 people every month from this club, and we know they have a treasure trove in their archives, and you could almost run a whole club on just highlighting individual photographers and seeing their work. And I feel like I know Teddy better, Tom better, and Lisa better through their images.
This was really great presentation from those 3 presenters, and as Kip said, there is just no question how deep our club is in talents. And honestly, truly, every day that we have one meeting or we have a photo share, or I personally go to focus group, I'm learning something new, because I'm seeing something that say, okay, how is this done? Can I do it? And so every single time I am learning, and I think that we have so much talent in here that we can all nurture from it, I guess. Everything is said. This is great, though. It's a great job. Anybody else had a comment or had anything to say?
Just a comment of, I appreciate how much work each of the presenters put into. I was thinking, gee, if I was asked, I would like, pick a couple dozen pictures and go click through them. But I appreciated the music behind them and the thoughtfulness in the presentation and the thoughtfulness of sharing your story for each of you. So thank you very much. It really made it into a presentation.
Yeah, I have a question or a suggestion for Lisa, just like you asked about focus stacking. I mean, it's obvious that when you take those portraits and the event pictures that you're taking, many of them you're posing the people or having them do certain things. Yet most of your pictures, it would be very hard to tell if they were actually posed by you because you've got natural looks, natural reactions from the people. How do you do that? Or would you be willing to share a workshop on how to make posed pictures not look posed?
I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Yeah, in a nutshell, I post them at the beginning and then I say, if I wasn't here, what would you be doing right now? And then they kind of relax and fall into whatever's comfortable for them. Yeah, I would love to do that. I was thinking, gosh, 15 years ago, Kip and I did a teaching one night on posing. And it was fun. And I felt like people learned, and I'd be happy to do that again. His technique is different from my technique. I'm sloppy compared to him. But that's because I'm more about catching the emotion. My pictures aren't as precise, is that the word, Kip, as his are? The lighting isn't always great, but I catch the emotion. So we're a little bit different in that regards. But yeah, I would love to teach that. It's pretty fun. It's an amazing career.
Yes, Lisa, I noticed that some of your portraiture had a little bit of humor with it. It just had a dog and a person, but the dog's tongue was out. And just that's just one example of some of the humor that you had. And it just gave each of the portraits a really human quality that we easily relate to.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, relating with people and getting to know them, that vulnerability, so that they can feel vulnerable, and we really have a good time. And I'm not kidding, when I learned to schmooze from Kip, I think a lot of it is the ability to make people feel comfortable and be okay with being photographed. And I think sometimes they even just forget that they're being photographed and just have a good time. And that, I think, is key to a lot of portrait photography, especially wedding.
I'd like to point something out. Not one person has asked, what kind of camera do you use? What lens do you use? Good pictures can be made by good photographers with almost any equipment. So I think that message is reinforced here tonight. But speaking of equipment, I'll segue. I have now maybe 7 or 8 donated working film cameras to give away. So if anybody is intrigued by that, let me know. The cameras come with film, so you can try them out. So don't be bashful, please. Please.
Anything else?
Any other questions, comments? This has been a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shine and-
So thank you for including all of us on Zoom. I'm realizing the limitations of Zoom are we can't give you a standing ovation. I haven't figured out how to do that on Zoom. I think that's what you all deserve. Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, guys. You have a good night, and we'll see you later. We'll see you in the show.
Everybody, thanks, Raoul.
Bye, everybody.
Good job. Great evening.
Thank you.